It's Tuesday. It's Footy Prime. Jimmy's back, as promised. Dubs is here and Wong is here. I'm Shams. JC's still a bit under the weather, but he's still got his...
Under the weather. Sorry, it was
down by the... Oh, yeah. Bruce Willis.
Still weird, isn't he?
He's still odd, yeah. I still think the Bruce Willis version in like 1988 was the best version of that song.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Check it out. It's great. Before his head went all weird.
Oh, poor Bruce Willis.
I feel bad for him, yeah. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today.
No.
We're talking about football. That's what we do on this show. We've got a guest, as promised. It's a huge week for Canadian soccer, right? And the CPL specifically, with the Concacaf Champions Cup kicking off. Forge hosting Monterrey on Wednesday. It's Cavalry Pumas on Thursday. Then it's Whitecaps against Saprissa on, I think, February the 20th. So a week or so away. So we're joined by CPL's executive, senior, most important vice president, soccer, Costa Smyrniotis. Costa, welcome back to the show, mate. How you doing?
I'm great. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
We're excited.
I was starting to sweat there for a while. Movies, or I was like, I didn't write any notes on any movies.
Oh, really? So I guess we should cancel the 5 questions with Costa. All right, so listen, Costa. We had Nate Ingham of Atletico Ottawa on the show yesterday, and he was saying that this week and this week only, he is a huge fan of Forge and of the Cavalry. So obviously he knows how important this week is for Canadian soccer and the CPL specifically. For those hardcore fans who just cannot cheer for either Forge or Cavalry this week, what do you say to them?
You kind of have to. I think that, I think that's the message to everybody is, what, if you, you need to do it in private, you need to do it. Please don't see it, turn on One Soccer at home and watch the match and, and support the bigger picture. I think we've all done it at one point. I think we're all diehard fans of a certain club, certain national team. But, once in a while, we're curious, or, once in a while we'll support something that has a little bit of a, a national flavor to it, right? So I think it's important in these situations for everybody. And, I heard kind of a little bit the comments from Nate yesterday, and they were excellent. They were exactly, online with just kind of what we're trying to grow here, what we're trying to create in this country. And it was just great hearing it from a, I'm going to use the term veteran player in our league, but what Nate said yesterday was something that you hear from a lot of the players that are in kind of his, call it, age or experience category in our league. And at the end of the day, they're all out there to win, but ultimately they're very happy to see others do well on the bigger picture, and especially when it comes to CONCACAF, which is a massive event for us.
Is it more than just the result? Is about the performance and the ability to show the rest of CONCACAF, look, here we are, we're good, we can compete with the very best in the region?
Well, I think it's your shop window to the outside world. Sometimes we're in our little bubble, and in our little bubble, everything is great, and we believe sometimes it's one thing or another. But, we're part of this global game that's just massive, and it's so much bigger than we are. And, we have to find a way to connect to it. Champions Cup, and especially with the tremendous efforts of the leadership at CONCACAF trying to really elevate the event, it's just massive. And it's massive for us at Canadian Premier League. The fact that we obviously have, 2 to 3 participants, each year in this event. And again, it's our shop window to the outside world. This is, as we grow our league and the improvements that we make year to year in our league, and then when you combine that, with having some world-class Canadian players on the global landscape, the Champions Cup is a way for us to kind of, again, be that shop window to the outside world. And when somebody watches, Jonathan David score, a mega goal in Champions League during a weekday, the very next question is, where's the next one? And that answer always has to be in the Canadian Premier League. And it comes through being able to play in Champions Cup to be able to showcase that talent.
Costa, you're talking about the players that could be coming through, maybe the diamonds in the rough. When you look at the Canadian Premier League and you see some of these young players in development, Taid, James Cameron, Grady McDonald, obviously he's just moved on, Shola Jimo, and the list goes on. I mean, you must be particularly delighted with the development that you're seeing right now with this league.
Well, I'm ecstatic, to be honest, and I think you know it very well. We've chatted about it on many occasions. It's the opportunity. And we've never had the opportunity. We have now 200 plus jobs in this league, and we have opportunity. And it's just not, sometimes we just look at the roster of 20 players and we believe that's it. Our clubs are doing it right. There's another 5, 6 younger ones in training every day. There's, they have a locker room within the facility. They're learning how to be a pro. They're being around the club. So when finally their number gets called, and it could come this week, for some of them, they may get their first professional minutes, playing against a Mexican giant. They're ready. And that's what excites me, being able to get out and speak to our clubs or being able to watch them in training. And sometimes, I know who the veterans are. We all know who they are, the guys who are going to show up and do the business. But sometimes you're always kind of paying attention to, who are those 4 or 5 over there, that are kind of going through the exercises, and what's their story? Where did they come from? How are you guys integrating them into the squad? Because they're going to be the next ones, and that's what makes us super exciting. You mentioned quite a few names there, and there's obviously more. And it's about having the platform for opportunity. Just over the years and before we were around, there just wasn't enough opportunity, and now we have opportunity, and we have it within our own country, which is very special.
Costa, going back to what you were saying about kind of the fandom and the support for fellow franchises or fellow players who are playing in the Concacaf Champions Cup, what do you think that says about the fandom of CPL, where sometimes there's a gatekeeping around it, saying like, in order to be legitimate fans, like you have to be kind of unilateral and singular in your thinking, we just support our own club. But you're saying for the growth of the game, everyone kind of has to be supporting each other. So what do you think CPL can do to kind of stake their claim as being a unique fan base and something that's unique to Canada?
Well, I think you've seen it. It kind of started because the fact that not too long ago, we had to start a league right from the start. And I think you saw it in year one, and I obviously was very fortunate to be there when it all started. Jimmy was there as well. And you saw it, in the build up to the league, kind of there was this camaraderie that came together. Everybody kind of knew everybody. We all were kind of walking into this massive project. And again, everybody was a competitor on the field. But ultimately, what ended up happening was, it's just we kind of worked together. You figured things out along the way. What's working at York? What's working at Pacific and the different clubs? What isn't working? How do we bring this all together? We also saw it with supporters groups at the end of the day starting to form, and be a big part of our clubs, but at the same time communicating with each other. And how do we one up the one next to us? So what ended up happening is, you saw the growth of that part of it, which is just as important. Everything we do on the field is great. Our biggest challenge is growing a lot of everything off the field. I've always said we got a tremendous amount of talent in this country, and we're going to give them a platform within our current clubs, future clubs coming on board, and with the growth that's coming. But our biggest challenge and maybe opportunity is everything that we're doing off the field, the great work you guys do, and everybody in this ecosystem of trying to build the football industry in this country. That's our big challenge. But I always say the challenge for me is the opportunity here.
Costa, your role has changed. You first were with Forge FC, and then you joined the CPL. As the growth of the league has been on the forefront for you, how has personally your responsibilities changed as your titles changed?
The easy answer, it's multiplied by 8. I think if you just kind of do the simple math, right, and then start and looking, as you look forward to our future growth. But really, that's it. It's just being able to kind of have a much bigger picture. Somebody asked me, what are you working on this week? And, I said 2027, right? In a way, you kind of got to look out that far. And then obviously we have a great team here that helps to ensure things, get done on a day-to-day basis. But it's that big picture. And for me, it's always about opportunity, which is a very big, thing for me, having worked in this industry for many years where there wasn't opportunity, and you're always challenging and you're always knocking on somebody else's door somewhere outside this country to give a player or a coach or somebody a chance. to succeed, to have a chance to succeed, actually. And now it's about doing it in-house. Obviously connecting this great youth game that we have in this country and the great work done by everybody across this country in terms of growing our sport, connecting the amateur game to the pro game, but then also connecting CPL to the global game, right? So there's a little bit of bottom up and a little bit of the top down, and then, somewhere in between, we're figuring it all out.
I was talking to Rob Friend last week about the whole Grady McDonald move, and he was saying how amazing it is. He's negotiating with Club Bruges, and then a Premier League club came to the table late in the negotiation as well to get his signature. And he said, 4, 5, 6 years ago, the thought of having Champions League caliber teams watching CPL and watching your team, was almost unheard of, right? It shows how far the game's really come along. Looking at Vancouver FC and what Rob's doing there, he's got his tentacles all over MLS Academy football and procuring talent there if they're good enough, and saying, listen, if you're 16, 17, I can offer you the opportunity to play against men week in and week out, which is better than playing against perhaps youth academies right now. You come from academy football with Sigma many, many years ago, Costa. Not really that long ago, actually, but you're probably still involved, in fact. But is CPL seen as a threat to academy football because they can offer that professionalism?
No, again, it's opportunity. I don't think there's a threat. What they're doing out in Vancouver is tremendous, and I'll take it a step further. It's not about particularly targeting one group. It's about wanting to be the club of choice for all players in British Columbia, right? So, it's a massive statement, but I think with the work that's being done there, I think you're starting to see the foundation of it. You're starting to see that, they believe in this. They believe in their ability to be able to give opportunity, to be able to work with players and help along the way to create value, to create opportunity, to create, eyes and ears watching, and they've been successful. You mentioned, Grady, and that's just a tremendous story in terms of, being able to give a different path, and a path that at the end of the day includes first team football. That's the most important thing here. So, being able to do that and being able to kind of stand there and make obviously a pitch to a young man, in these situations, to be able to say, here's how we can do it. And it doesn't always work, and it's not always linear, and how you kind of get from point A to point B. But it did take place, and it took place in a very good way. It took place to a club that is known for developing players as well to continue along the path, because, he's still a young talent. And it's important to also make the right next steps, and kudos to the club in terms of putting in the effort, giving the opportunity, playing such a young player in our league as well, and also doing all the work off the field to be able to kind of work with him to get the next opportunity, and in saying that, having, already lining up the next one. Because now the story becomes a lot easier. The pitch becomes a lot easier. There's proof in what you do, and we've seen it throughout our league, whether it's, Grady in this chance, Kwesi Poku last year, Gote and Tigne before. There are many examples of these in our league. And if you look at our league and the amount of kind of outbound transfers where value has been created for such a young league, and we're probably, more than, I don't even know that, I should know the number, but more than a couple of dozen of these type of transfers. That's tremendous, where there's an actual creation of value, there's work put in, and we're such a young league, right? With really no history, and you've been able to do all this great work, and I see it continuing in Vancouver. I think it's going to be a big part of who they are as a club going forward.
Costa, you're talking about academy players making that leap to first team football. And a candid Mark Noonan joined my friend Noel Butler over the holidays over on Montreal's TSN 690. And he was talking about the prospect of League One CS Saint Laurent graduating to the CPL as an expansion team. Is that type of trajectory similar to what we're seeing with the players and that promotion from League One to CPL, one that you're prioritizing as a league?
Listen, I think it's only normal for us. League One is a massive, massive part of the Canadian football ecosystem, right? If you think about the foundations of it, and, I was, again, very fortunate to be around some really, smart people that when they decided to kind of create this league many years ago, That's what it was. It was about, hey, we have no professional football in this country. How do we get as close as we can to it and start changing the model? It was about changing the model from a bottom-up model that really, ran into a huge bottleneck that as soon as, talents turned 13, 14, there just was, you didn't see a future, right? So we almost had to create this vehicle that gave some sort of hope within each club structure that you can aspire to play first team football. And for a young player, coming through the ranks of your local club, to be able to aspire up and look at players on your first team, within your club, and doing well and aspire to it. That was our way of almost creating a pro league before we had a pro league, and now that CPL is on board, that becomes even more important. It allows us to now see where the next ones are. And when I say the next ones, it's on the field, it's off the field. It's also learning within our communities that, the game, there's also a professional. When I say a professional aspect, it's creating a little bit the industry of sport. And it's creating people to understand how to put on a proper game day, how to be able to market your club, how to be able to also go out at the end of the day, which shouldn't be a problem, and to be able to also demand, some sort of fee to be able to buy a ticket to show up and then support the club and their efforts, which happens worldwide. You can go to small towns in all parts of the world, dare I say some villages across, different parts of the world, and it's okay to show up, you're showing up to a 5,000 seat plus stadium to be able to watch the local team. You may be a Man U fan, but you're still the local towns fan as well. And that's the gathering ground on weekends. That's kind of where we aspire that space to be at the end of the day, where our communities get to celebrate the sport. As CPL, we're going to expand, but this is a massive country. You're never going to be able to fill in all the geography, right? League One allows you to kind of fill in the geography across the country and be in all these communities, right? And help them aspire. And maybe one day it becomes the second division in a more professional setup. But the most important part now is that link that there's going to be opportunities in the professional game, and where you kind of develop is within the League One structure to kind of get there.
Would it be fair to say that you're kind of keeping an eye on a lot of these League One teams that have maybe potential to get into the Canadian Premier League? I mean, I think there's 47 clubs or so within League One across the country. And I'm sure there's a few towns and cities that have potential to really make that next jump into the Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, I think that's a very logical way of looking at it. Like, I don't think it's too hard that, if we grab a piece of paper and we write down, what are the next, biggest centers across the country, from a business aspect, population, demographics, we have the sporting landscape. We can probably write down who the 10 next ones are. And then the next logical thing is to go look at, in those communities, who are the good people at these youth clubs that are doing good work, and how do we attach them to such a project, I think, right? And that's a very logical way of looking at it, because they're doing tremendous work. They're part of the community fabric already. We just have to find a way to kind of create a professional landscape environment for them to be able to continue to do that good work within, knowing that it's a big jump from the amateur level to the professional level. It's a massive jump at the end of the day. And it's not speaking so much of what happens on the field. It's all about what happens off the field, right? We all know in this country, we have a big challenge when it comes to infrastructure. We don't have places to play, and it's a big one. And that's where we need to obviously do a better job across this country to kind of figure out how we can unlock, that issue. Because what I'm confident is there's a lot of talent in this country that then could support once all that is in place.
And I think an established sports fan base with a sophisticated, experienced fan base, you identify talent from a young age, right? You look overseas and you watch your local team play. You see some kid who looks really good, and you can follow his career through the levels to the point where he ends up playing the Division One soccer in your country, in this case CPL. That's so rewarding, and that's got to be an objective too. We're not quite there yet, but there are probably hardcore Whitecaps fans who knew about Grady at the academy, right? And then saw him switch to Vancouver FC and followed that journey. And now he's going to start watching Club Brugge games. I love that, right? And we haven't quite got it yet We might have it in other sports here. Maybe hockey with CHL. You see some kids 16, 17, and you follow their careers. But I think, Costa, we're getting close to that point with the structure of the game in this country, with League One being what it is now, and the synergy with the CPL. Yeah,
that's the hope. To be honest, that's something that I'm looking forward to. Like, obviously have the opportunity to do it. It's part of what we do within this group on a daily basis. But imagine a situation where you can turn on One Soccer and you're watching the game of the week from League One, and you're watching this next group, right? That's it's pretty cool. When we always look back at some of this stuff, last week I think it was I can't remember where I saw it, and it was this U14 game from Spain. It was Madrid, I think, versus Valencia. It was great, and at some point, somebody from those 24 players is going to show up one day, and you're going to be paying, a large ticket to go watch them in person. You're going to be getting a subscription to watch them, live every week. But, the ability to kind of see it happen, initially and kind of follow it through, I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And that's a way for us to kind of elevate the game as well, because not only are you paying attention to players then, but you're also elevating some of these communities, and you're getting them energized about the sport. You're allowing them to feel a connection to the sport. That's what our game does. Our game is great because you can localize it to such a small community, but then you can see the path to the World Cup. You can see the path to the club, World Cup. You can see a path how your local team can get to the biggest prize in the world and to the biggest players. And there's no other sport, I think, that does that globally. And if we can make that connection every day by just doing a little bit more, all of us, I think that's where the rewarding part coming in Canadian football.
Remember City TV used to have their amateur player of the week? It used to be on the City newscast, and they'd pick some kid from soccer or volleyball, whatever it is, and they'd interview this kid. It was the coolest little thing, right? There's no reason why One Soccer can't do that in their CPL city each week.
Great idea.
Get in that community, find some kid, chat with him, and then who knows, 5 years from now, Johnny Briggs is suddenly starting for Cavalry.
He's a good player, Johnny.
Yeah, John, good little left back.
Yeah.
Definitely Johnny Briggs left back, right? For sure. He's not a striker.
Are you saying Briggs sounds like a fullback?
Kind of, yeah. A bit like Brennan.
Yeah, Brennan. Anyone with a B.
Pretty much. Hey, Costa, so we're seeing the players move and getting into some cash transfers. We're yet to see the coach make a move to MLS or beyond. Are you surprised that Bobby or Tommy haven't been procured yet by an MLS team or overseas?
The answer is probably yes and no. I think we're blessed. We have some really, I keep using the word talent. And when I do that, I use that, in many aspects, not just with players. And we're very fortunate to, you've mentioned two of them there. There's some great coaches across our league at all our clubs. So in the one sense, when you see the work they do, that's tremendous. And those are, skills that I think they would be very successful wherever they go. On the other hand, too, they're kind of builders in a sense that they've helped build organizations. And when you help build organizations and you're involved in the fabric of everything in that organization, that also creates a little bit of stickiness sometimes, in a sense that you're in a good spot. You find ways to challenge yourself every day. You have very supportive ownership groups that provide you everything you need to be successful and are very supportive. So in a way, that's why in a way I say too is, you always have to ensure that, we always say this, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? And I think you always have to be very measured in these situations. I think if we were a more mature league, I think if, many years down the road, we're a little bit more mature and, you're going to probably see a little bit more turnover, I think, on a more frequent basis. But I think where we are in our evolution, I can understand why, things are the way they are right now in terms of the gentlemen that you picked out who have been amazing, but also other coaches within our league who are doing tremendous work, and their staff, and all the great work they do with our players.
Costa, you got Concacaf Champions Cup.
Yes,
you got it, Wonger.
Too many friggin' acronyms. What have you done to Are you at Tim Hortons Field? I'm sorry, I know they're whatever their cappuccino, wherever it's going to be called. What are you doing at Tim Hortons -7 tomorrow? What is going on at that event for you to be prepared for Monterrey to come here and play a hopefully semi tilted to Canadian team pitch? What's going on there right now?
So I just called in. Apparently, they've hidden all the shovels. They're going to ensure that the field stays nice and white. So I'm kind of joking, but you know what? The last 2 times I think they've come here, Mexican clubs, and both been Mexican Giants. It's been like kind of tropical weather, kind of suited. Everything was nice. It'd be nice if there was just a little bit of something different. You go down there. I remember the first trip a couple years ago when we went to Azteca with Forge, and we had to play the match there. You couldn't breathe. It was like 10 minutes in, and I'm in the stands, and imagine the poor player. I couldn't breathe. In terms of getting used to the whole environment, and obviously such a massive stadium. So the elements definitely play in their favor there. And when the field tilts, it really tilts there. So I think any little advantage tomorrow, would be welcome. But, it's about enjoying these games. Like, the privilege of being able to play in these games, like, it's just tremendous. Not too long ago, this didn't take place. Not too long ago, we didn't have teams going into Central America. We all know how difficult it was for Canadian teams to go get results in Central America, right? And you have Forge, who, have been in this competition, I think, or, the Concacaf League before, and, in every year, and they have a winning record in Central America. Like, that's just tremendous feat for such a young club. And now you have Calvary going in this year, playing against Pumas, representing our league as champions. And, I think they learned from last year, their first time in the event. And I think you're going to see, a very different Calvary squad this year against a very good Pumas. But, look at it. Look at Monterrey. This is a giant of Mexican football. I think it's 50 million plus in incoming transfers over the last year and a half, right? I won't tell you Forge's incoming comparison. I didn't write it down, so remind me next time. But, it's just tremendous, right? And all week, all we're hearing is Sergio Ramos. They just, sure, let's bring him in. Let's go spend millions more. But at the end of the day, what we saw last year, we saw competitive matches. We saw CPL teams being very well respected, not just on the field, but just off the field as well. You come here and you're in a proper stadium. You come here and the proper game day. You come here, there's media attention. You come here and, everything is kind of clockwork in Canada when it comes to these games, which isn't always the case when you're in, and I won't mention any countries, when you go somewhere else, right? And that you gained a lot of respect in global football, not only how your teams perform on the field, but just how you manage being a participant in these events off the field, and the attention we've seen and the attention, throughout the week and leading up to the matches, is tremendous, and I'm looking forward to, both games. I think they're both going to be good games, and I think we're going to be very well represented.
Hopefully it's Hamilton's version of, was it during qualifying for the World Cup in Qatar when Mexico was in Edmonton, and then when they saw their breath, they thought it was their souls leaving their bodies. So hopefully that's the home field advantage that's created for Forge.
I was there for that game, right? The Azteca, and it was their souls.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was cold. I was in Edmonton then. It was, yes.
Man, even the Canadian players not named Sam Adekubi hated it. I think Sam loved it. Remember the dive into the snowbank?
Yeah, and Alistair Johnston with the short sleeves.
Oh, that, yes. Get in, AJ. Yes. No gloves. Just, this is how you do it. Love it. So, it's a big week, exciting week, and let's hope that we get a blizzard over the next 24 hours. Costa, thanks so much. Enjoy the match tomorrow. I'm sure you will. And we'll get you on again real soon.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your support.
Thanks, Costa.